We're trying to collect everyone's email. We're starting to send out more information of like our how to maintain plants and planting and watering guides online, and trying to coordinate it with if you like buy a tree, we email out a watering guide and a pruning guide to the tree and stuff. So if you guys want to write down your email, we've already. So first, I'm going to talk about a few vines that do great as a living wall, also as a screen. All of them are evergreen or semi-evergreen. So the first one is Japanese Paul's honeysuckle. It's a semi-evergreen vine. They also can grow as a hedge, but if you have a trellis, it will grow as big as you train it. They can grow real fast and vigorously. They can take up a lot of space. Can grow up a fence. So if you don't have a fence to kind of guide it through, a trellis would be required. But these are real nice because they have a lot of flowers, yellow and white flowers that are super fragrant. They have like a real strong vanilla scent to them. They kind of bloom for a while, and they kind of shed their flowers and kind of rest. Then they'll pop up flowers again. So they'll bloom kind of a few times throughout the year. Usually they take some time off in the middle of summer when it's real hot. They bloom, early spring, end of summer, kind of going into fall. This is, technically a semi-evergreen, which means kind of depending on what kind of weather we have in the wintertime. If it's like a really cold winter, it will shed a lot of its leaves but it'll come back every spring. But the last two winters we've had or so have been pretty warm. These guys have held on to 90% of their leaves or so. But this is a real good one. It's really fragrant. It could fit in a pot, but for any of the vines, if you want to grow in a pot, you'd want to go with the biggest pot you could possibly find, because these guys can grow as big as you train them. But the Japanese Hall is favorite. You see them a lot in people's yards, kind of as a hedge. Because if you don't train it to grow up a fence, it'll just kind of form a hedge. So it's a real good one. Japanese Hall is nice.
Do hummingbirds and butterflies?
Yeah, good. Yeah. She asked, do hummingbirds and butterflies like the honeysuckle?
Do javelina and deer?
Well, I'll go with the first one. Hummingbirds and butterflies love the honeysuckle. It's kind of hard to tell if these flowers are a little bit spent, but when they're blooming in full, they're like a long trumpet-like flower. So that attracts the hummingbirds to have like the long beaks. So the answer is they go crazy for this stuff. And the other question was, do javelina and deer eat this? They shouldn't eat it because when they're flowering, they have a really strong fragrance, and animals kind of usually stay away from stuff that has a strong fragrance. So, they should stay away from it, but nothing is 100%.
But what about just blooming then? It's just the green. Are they going to come in there?
Anything's possible. The question was if they're done blooming, will the deer and javelina eat it? And they shouldn't, because they don't normally go for it. It's kind of like a small leaf. The deer tend to like bigger, leafier stuff. So they should stay away from it.
Yeah, I have it out as a hedge, not right by the street. Nobody ever messes with it.
Yeah.
And I've had it there for 20 years.
Yeah, they're good, solid plants. The next one is called crossvine. This one is the tangerine beauty crossvine. This is kind of a woody, leggy vine, but it's semi-evergreen as well. But this one has these kind of like tubular things on the end that cling to stuff really well. So this will climb up a wall almost like unassisted. So if you have a spot that doesn't have a fence, but it's like just the rock or like the cement walls and stuff, just think climb up that. This blooms all season long. Doesn't have strong fragrance like the honeysuckle, but it climbs really well. We have these against the fence down there or on the irrigation lines. These little arms like wrap around the irrigation lines or cling themselves to the fence, really easily. So This is not going to be as dense as the honeysuckle, but it'll still give you a big kind of tangerine flower, but it latches on to stuff really well.
So exposure wise, does it do well west east?
Yeah, full sun.
Full
Both
sun.
are full sun. Sorry, I should have mentioned that.
Yeah, full sun.
Both are full sun. This can grow in some shade. It's just probably the flowers probably wouldn't open up as quickly. It might grow a little bit slower, but it's full sun.
But it does need irrigation.
Yeah, it needs irrigation. It's not super drought tolerant. And anything that's going to flower consistently, when a plant flowers, it uses up more energy, so it just requires water.
Well, I saw my neighbors had one, and it gets very aggressive. It's all over the place.
Yeah, vines
And you have to really trim it.
Yeah, vines can both grow like vigorously, especially in the summertime when it gets warm. If they get some water, they kind of take off. Especially this one too, because it clings to stuff.
Yeah.
So as soon as it gets close to something, the little long arms will just latch on. So all the vines are going to kind of grow pretty big. You have to manage them or have like a trellis where you kind of train them. If you have like a fence, sometimes they just grow on over the other side of the fence or kind of fill in the chain link fence, but they can kind of go a little crazy.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Can you play like on slopes and they just grow on the slope?
The question was, can you lay it on a slope? A lot of these, if you don't train to grow up a trellis, it will form like a small hedge. So it won't be like a ground cover. It'll still have some height to it. But like she was saying, she has it as a hedge, with the honeysuckle.
Yeah.
And it grows to like, a few feet tall and wide. Some can get kind of bigger, but it'll be like a small little bush, not like a ground cover.
What is that called?
It's called a crossvine. This one's called the Tangerine Beauty because the flower is kind of like an orange, like a light orange color. It's called Japanese tall honeysuckle. And the next vine is firethorn or pyracantha. This is a real good vine for like a screen, if you have a trellis or so, because it's really, really dense. It has thorns on it, that's why a lot of people don't like it. But this, like along a fence or a trellis, filled in, and it's a solid dark green year round. It's an evergreen. It gets kind of white little flowers, and then in the end of summer, fall time, they'll have kind of bright red berries. But this would be the densest one of all. I've seen them along people's fences between two houses, like a metal fence, and it's just like super solid, super dense. Some animals like to kind of build their homes in there. You'll see like rabbits running in and out of there. It provides a lot of protection for them. This is a real solid one. It's kind of underrated. A lot of people don't like it because they're scared of the thorns. If it gets real big, it gets hard to manage because you're cutting with gloves on and still being poked with thorns and stuff. But it will be the densest one. And it's keeps it colored in grocery store parking lots and stuff is like a hedge because they require pretty little maintenance. You can kind of let it go and be super dense and kind of forget about it. Just got to give it some water.
How much sun?
You could do full sun. It would want full sun. But again, it could grow in shade. It just would grow slower and probably less flowers, less berries. But it can handle full sun. The question was, what kind of sun does it need?
How far apart would you were making
The question was, how far apart would you place them if you're making a 6-foot wall? I think you would only need one. It would grow into a 6-foot wall pretty easily if it was trained that way. If you wanted it to be very dense, you could plant two, a few feet apart, but they take off fast. You can see there's a bunch of new growth that's pushed out so far this year, but it will grow as wide as you train it. So if you have a trellis that's 6 feet wide, it will eventually fill it in. This might take a couple of years if you wanted like instant. You could plant 2-3 feet apart, and it'd be really dense. Then you'd never really be able to get in there.
All these things, what water do they need?
The question was, how much water do they need? They'll need consistent water like when they're newly planted, the best kind of way to think about it is whatever gallon-sized container it comes in, you want to water it that amount every time you water it. So in the summertime, if it's planted in the ground, usually you're watering like 3 or 4 times a week, and it'd be within a 5-gallon bucket, close to 5 gallons each time.
Do all of those do well in the high forested area, like the higher elevations? Where I can find those
The question was, do they do good in higher elevation? They would do fine. The first 2 would probably shed a lot of their leaves because you're probably colder in the wintertime. They're both like when these guys, ones that are semi-evergreen, when these shed their leaves, they usually shed from the inside and kind of towards the bottom, but the tips tend to keep a lot of their leaves, So if you had the kind of colder winter than we do, the plant might be kind of bare in the middle a little bit and kind of down by the bottom, but the top third would still have a little bit of growth on it. So it would do fine up there. It just might be more likely to shed its leaves. The pyracantha would do fine up there. I think they can handle temperatures down to -10 degrees, so it would be fine up there, and it would stay green. So the pyracantha all would do fine. The first 2 vines would shed their leaves most likely.
the pyracantha a little bit more probably resistant.
Yeah, it should be. It has thorns. Animals don't like stuff that kind of poke at them and stuff. The question was, is the pyracantha animal resistant? So yeah, it would be animal resistant, but the way we've had dry winters, the animals are kind of eating stuff they don't normally eat. They're kind of desperate mode. Yep.
Are the berries toxic to dogs at all?
The question was, are the berries toxic to dogs? I think they are, but depending on the size of the dog, a little dog over there, that guy, he probably would get a stomachache if he eats some of the berries. If you had a bigger dog, it probably would be fine. It might just throw up. But they are toxic to dogs. But usually the birds kind of peck at them. They don't really fall on the ground like, say, a fruit tree or anything, but they are toxic to dogs. Those are the vines. I think next we'll talk about hedges. First, we'll start with this plant. It's called a green spire unanimous. This is a great plant for if you're trying to build a privacy screen wall. This is an evergreen shrub that gets like 6 to 8 feet tall, but only a few feet wide. So if you're trying to build a wall to kind of block the neighbor's house or block like an electrical box or something, this is a good tall, narrow hedge that keeps its leaves year-round. It's pretty good with water. It doesn't take a ton of water, but it'll be a kind of tall, narrow, evergreen hedge that you can kind of build along the wall if you're trying to block something that's kind of tall and narrow. What's the name again? It's called a green spire unanimous.
Is it fast or slow?
The question was, is it fast or slow growing? The unanimous are pretty moderate growing. Can probably grow 8 inches to a foot a year. They're not super fast growing. The vines are very fast growing, but a lot of these shrubs are kind of more of a moderate grower. Deer and javelina are kind of known to go after unanimous, but this one, if you look closely, kind of has a little bit of a serrated leaf, which they don't like, and the leaves are a lot smaller. The animals tend to go for like the bigger, leafier stuff. So, they might go after it, they might not. They might try to find something closer that's more appetizing to them. But deer are known to go after unanimous from time to time. But it's a good, tall, skinny one. It's hard to find stuff that stays kind of narrow, but it'll stay super compact, be kind of an upright, unanimous plant. Next one, this is Indian hawthorn. This is another evergreen shrub. They come in kind of different shapes and sizes, but this one is called the Southern Moon Gita hawthorn. The biggest one. It gets to be 8 feet tall and 8 feet wide. Another super dense evergreen shrub that pushes out little flowers. think this one gets little white flowers. And it gets red berries as well. This is kind of a little bit of a slow grower, but if you're trying to build a privacy wall, this will be 8 feet tall, 8 feet wide, super dense. Not going to be see-through or anything. It's probably another plant that rabbits might kind of burrow in, or quails or birds like that will kind of like these dense hedges because they can kind of get protection from there. But it's another evergreen hedge, 8 feet tall, 8 feet wide. This is a real nice, another evergreen hedge for privacy. It's called the gilt-edged silverberry. It has kind of the variegated leaves that you kind of recognize with other anonymous plants, but it's a little bit different. It's really heat tolerant, wind tolerant. And if you come up after the class, feel the leaves. It has like a sandpaper type feel to the leaves that animals don't like stuff with texture, but it should stay away from it. This will get like 8 feet tall, 5 feet tall, 5 feet wide, but it's kind of like a more drought tolerant, heat tolerant, wind tolerant version of a unanimous. It doesn't require as much water as other stuff, but it has a cool kind of variegated leaf color and a sandpaper feel. It's another super dense plant that you can kind of, as you're building a wall for privacy, kind of space them out and have like a dense 5-foot hedge with color. It's an evergreen as well. It doesn't shed its leaves or anything, but it's kind of on the more drought tolerant side if you're worried about water. But it's kind of an underrated one. Everyone thinks it's a unanimous, but it's kind of a more drought tolerant version of the plant, and have a little bit more animal resistance because the leaves got a sandpaper feel to them.
What temperature is it tolerant to?
I mean, the low? It's an evergreen, so unless we get to, it can go down to 10 degrees. Then it would shed its leaves, and probably if we get down to 10 degrees or colder consistently, might be a little bit cold for it. So I guess I don't think we get that cold here, but if we had a really, really cold winter where it got consistently below 10 for a while, it probably wouldn't make it through. You could cover it, yeah, that would be fine. For the question, what if you covered it? If you covered it, that would keep it alive. But when the plants, like if it says it's already down to 10 degrees, when we get cold, the coldest part of the day is only like a few hours in the morning. I think for this to get die from the cold, we'd probably have to have consistent temperatures below 10 for like a few days in a row, where it stays below 10 for multiple hours a night. The coldest part of the day is like between like 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. If it's only a couple hours, it probably would get frost damage on the tips where the leaves would get black. And you just have to prune it, might stunt the growth a little bit. But it's a nice one. Gilt-edged silverberry. Next hedge for privacy is Bottinia. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Bottinia. A lot of people have them in their yards. These are a real good privacy hedge because they grow fast, they stay dense, they can get 10 feet tall easily and 6-8 feet wide. A lot of people have them in their yards around here. You can shape them and keep them smaller. These grow really fast. The new growth comes out with some red leaves. So in the springtime, when they were all pushing out new growth, you can see them around town. It was cool. They were super bright. It's almost like a neon red leaf. But these are real good, commonly used evergreen hedges here for privacy. The one drawback to these is they're kind of prone to fungus. So a lot of people will come in and treat them by fungicide from us because they grow real fast, but they get kind of black spot fungus on them. But they can grow a couple feet a year easily. And like I said, it'll be super tall, super dense. Line them up in a row and build the wall between houses and stuff. Bottinia, it's real good evergreen hedge. They get little kind of white flowers as well, but the flowers are not anything spectacular. Its main function is to grow big and fast and be dense.
And deer are not going to
They should stay away from them. I mean, a lot of people have them in their yards, and I don't know if I've ever heard anyone come in here say that their photinias getting eaten by deer. You know.
Do they make a red tip one?
Yeah, they all. So this one just came in. You can kind of see that just on this branch, the plants are getting, or the leaves are getting red. So it's the new growth that comes out red. Then it kind of results to like a dark green. But there's a bunch of different varieties. There's a red tip Photinia. This one is Fraser's Photinia. There's one called Red Dynamo. They're all kind of the same. The only difference is, a couple feet of height or width here and there. But they're all going to grow fast. But yeah, there's a red tip Photinia. There's a bunch of different varieties.
It's Photinia.
It's a Photinia. P. Yeah, P. I don't know how to spell it. P-H-O-T-I-N-A. Yeah, I'm a bad speller.
Photinia.
Photinia.
Okay.
Yeah. You see these around almost a lot of yards have landscapes. This is another evergreen hedge. This is kind of like an alternative Photinia if you're worried about fungus. It's called the Cotoneaster perrii. Test. This will be a super dense evergreen hedge, like 6 to 8 feet tall and wide. They're a pretty fast grower. They get little kind of white flowers and red berries as well. They kind of get long arms as they grow. So you see them kind of shaped as. Is that working? You see them kind of shaped as kind of like a box or a hedge, or you can kind of let them grow wild, a little bit wavy. But if you want it to be kind of like a denser plant, you kind of let it grow up big, and then really kind of uniformly as like a hedge or kind of like a wavy look to them. But these do great. They kind of have like a red bark on their stems, which is kind of cool, a little color contrast with dark green leaves. And in the winter time, the leaves kind of get like a little bit of like a purple tint to them too, which is kind of nice. So they do have color, like throughout the year. They have tiny little white flowers in the spring. They'll get red berries in the fall, and then the leaves will get like a purple color in the winter time. So they kind of change colors throughout the season. This one is a lot hardier than the Photinia as far as it's not going to just get fungus. Bugs don't go after it, and animals tend to stay away from Cotoneaster as well. And these are pretty drought tolerant as well. But it's kind of an underrated hedge. You see them kind of landscaped a lot in like common areas and neighborhoods where it's not like necessarily taken care of by a resident. It's like the responsibility of like landscaping company to take care of it because they don't require much maintenance. They just need consistent water. So it's a real kind of low maintenance evergreen hedge. These are pretty nice. It's called Cotoneaster perrii. This is a boxwood, another kind of commonly seen evergreen hedge for privacy. These are super dense evergreens, stay green year round. This particular variety, I think it's 8 feet tall. It's called the winter gem boxwood. So 6 feet tall, 6 feet wide. You often for like a ball. People even prune it at the bottom and have like a little mini tree. But these are another kind of like standard evergreen hedge. You see them kind of cut down short as like a square hedge, but they can get a lot taller. This variety can. And in the wintertime, they kind of slow down the growth a little bit. They're not like the fastest growing plant, but they're super dense. So it's real good. Screen or kind of barrier in between houses, or if you're trying to block, it seems like a lot of houses have those
electrical boxes in the middle of the front yard or something to kind of block that. But yeah, boxwood. You see them kind of all around. A very versatile plant, very easy to shape. But they're slow growing, so it's a slow growing evergreen hedge. It could do full sun. The question was, does it need sun? It could do full sun. It could do partial sun. Again, a lot of these plants can do fine in shade. They're just going to grow slower. And if this one's in shade, it's going to grow even slower. It's kind of known to be a slow grower. So you might want to think about something else if it's going to be in the shade spot, because it might only push out 6 inches a year or something. So if you're trying to build a hedge, it's going to take forever. Yeah. They're slow growers. All right, so I got some trees as well that are good for privacy screens. The first one this is a Spartan juniper. It's a good evergreen tree that gets to be about 12 to 15 feet tall and 6 feet wide. Stays green, dark green year round. Junipers are really tough here. They can handle the heat. They can handle the cold. They're pretty drought tolerant. But if you're looking to build a wall or to block the neighbor or separate the house, you could line a few of these up. And there's going to be solid green year round. Junipers are really low maintenance. All the ones that we bring in here, for the most part, don't have the berries. The juniper berries are what a lot of people are allergic to. I can't remember which it is. It's like the male plant or the female plant is the one that produces berries. We always bring in the ones that don't produce berries. So you won't get, if you're allergic to them, you don't have to worry about it. But it's kind of like a low maintenance tree that's going to be evergreen. You just have to give it water a few times a week when you're trying to build the privacy screen wall. The question was, how fast does it grow? Junipers are pretty moderate. They could probably grow close to a foot a year. One thing to think about is they can handle the cold, but sometimes it's good practice when we get snow to kind of brush the snow off of it the next morning, because the growth will get kind of stunted if snow's packed on it for a while, and then that area will probably get like a brown spot in it or something. So since it's kind of loose and then snow's packing on it, the next morning it's good to go out with a broom and smack a lot of the snow off, because it will start growing kind of funky if it gets kind of snow packed on it.
Is that where they get the juniper gnat from?
From?
Ever heard of the juniper?
No, I haven't heard the juniper gnat. I'm assuming it's a gnat.
Well, supposedly it's a gnat, and it can be very a painful bite, and it can really get quite nasty looking.
Oh no, I'm not familiar with the juniper gnat. Maybe that bug doesn't live in this region or something. It might be too cold for us here for them. The junipers can sometimes get spider mites, which is like a bug that will kind of suck the color and the life out of trees. So if you plant juniper trees, it's always good to keep an eye out for any kind of spider webs. If you start seeing spider webs on top, there's most likely spider mites on the tree, and you can't really see them with your naked eye, but they'll slowly kind of suck the color and the life out of the tree. So junipers, it's one thing to keep an eye out for with junipers is spider mites. All right, the next evergreen tree that's real good for privacy is this guy. It's called an Arizona rosewood. These grow kind of natively around here. I think you see a lot of them in the Tucson area. They like elevation. They can handle heat really well, but these are monsters. They get to be 20 feet tall, 20 feet wide. You can prune them at the bottom to kind of get like a trunk if you want like more like a canopy look. But these are super hardy. Again, you can come feel the leaves after the class. The leaves are sharp and serrated, so animals don't go after them. And as they get big, they kind of fill in and get super dense. But it's slow grower, but it's kind of like a native tree or hedge here that would get massive. So if you're trying to block the neighbor's hot tub or something, this will get big enough where it will kind of take over and kind of get to be 15-20 feet tall. They get little white flowers. You can see this guy has some white flowers and some spent flowers. Again, kind of like a similar trend to a lot of these other ones. Their flowers are kind of small. They're not really anything spectacular, but the function of this plant is just to get big, tall, and wide. These are very drought tolerant. Don't need a ton of water, but real good at blocking stuff, and it's kind of got a way more native look, and it has real good animal resistance because the leaves are sharp. The next tree is called the golden deodar cedar. This is a massive evergreen tree. Looking for privacy. It's going to be like 35 feet tall and 15 feet wide. It's kind of, you're used to seeing the deodar cedar, which has more of like a greenish blue look to them. This one just has kind of like a golden tint to the new growth, and then it kind of resorts to like a lighter green. And the other deodar cedars have more of like a blue green to them. But these are super fast growing evergreen trees that kind of have like an arching look to them, a weeping look to them. These do real well here. Don't require a ton of water, but if you're trying to block like a house or something, this will give you tons of height and width. They can grow 2 to 3 feet a year. So they're super fast growing, and they kind of have like an artsy look to them with their weeping limbs and stuff. When these get real big, they look really cool because they're so like droopy looking. It almost looks like it's like coming up behind you. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but these.
Dr. Tree.
Yeah, it does have like a funky look to it. It has like a kind of like a specimen tree look to them, but these do really well here, and they grow really fast. So
Do they get really full?
yeah, they'll
Or they
be.
just stay this 'cause it's kind of thin.
It's kind of thin. As they grow bigger, they'll get pretty dense. But it's not going to be dense all the way through. They're going to have like long kind of drooping arms hanging out, but they will fill out.
I'm sorry, can you ever prune these?
Yeah.
Like if they really overtake yard?
The question was, can you prune these? Yeah, I think you can prune them. They're going to push out most of their growth in the early springtime. So, if you can see, I mean, it's going to be hard to see, but on this one, it's greener down here, but the kind of golden new growth is on the tips. If you wanted to prune it, you can just kind of cut where the new growth is showing up in the springtime and kind of manage the size. But yeah, they'll get real big. So
It'd be better to do it in the spring versus fall.
yeah, well, the spring is when you'll see a lot of their new growth, so you can just kind of start shaping it in the spring as it's growing. Like you don't want it to get too big on this side because it's getting too close to the house. Then you can just kind of trim as you go. There's what they're going to say about this. But yeah, a good evergreen tree, super fast growing, but be sure you have the space for it because they can get 30, 40 feet tall, and they get super wide. So this one's kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum. This is called a Italian cypress tree. So this is a real tall, narrow evergreen tree that's only going to be 4 to 5 feet wide, but they can get upwards of 40, 50 feet tall. You often see these kind of lined up in a row if you're trying to like separate in between houses or kind of provide a screen. These are going to have like a very like uniform shape to them. They're not going to be kind of wavy like some of the other lined up in a row, lining down a driveway or in between houses. But they have a much like uniform, cleaner look to them, and they're get super tall. And cypress trees don't need a ton of water, but this one kind of grows a little slow. But if you're looking for kind of like a cleaner, narrow look to them, the Italian cypresses work really well. The next tree that's real good for privacy and real good for like a wind block too is this Arizona cypress tree. These are super fast growing, drought tolerant trees that they'll get to be, 15 to 20, 25 feet tall, and like 12 to 15 feet wide. But these guys keep, their width maybe, 60, 70% of the way up the tree before they kind of narrow out versus, like the Deodar cedar is going to be all width at the bottom and kind of get more and more narrow. This stick keeps width. So it's really good for blocking wind because it's going to have, these grow real fast. They often, you see them growing natively around here. If you go to like Willow Lake or Watson Lake, they kind of pop up out of nowhere. They have like little kind of acorn seed pods on there. This one doesn't have any. I think oh, you see one of them? I don't see it. Oh yeah, a tiny little one. They'll get to be the size of like, a little bit smaller than like a golf ball. But birds kind of peck at them, eat them, and then they kind of fly off. Then I think they poop out the seed. That's why you see them kind of pop up everywhere. But these are real cool just for their width. So people come in here all the time, like asking for a tree to kind of block their neighbor's house. And this is the first one I always recommend just because it's going to grow fast and like the width it has is really good. Is if you get a tree that can be, 30 feet tall and 20 feet wide, it's going to be 20 feet wide at the bottom and just get more and more narrow. So as far as, blocking something, sometimes, if the house is eye level, you're seeing parts of it through the tree. This will keep its width really well. And it's just native, fast growing, drought tolerant. Question?
Once it gets, let's say, up to 12 feet, are they okay to top and keep them from growing higher?
The question was, is it okay to top the trees when they get to a certain height? Yeah, you can always top trees if you want to kind of stunt their growth from growing upwards. Usually when you do that, they kind of grow denser sideways, It's never really like the best idea to top stuff because it really puts the tree through, a lot of stress, Of course it's feasible. I think you just have to do it at the right time. I wouldn't do it in the winter time. I wouldn't do it in the summertime. And maybe do it right before spring. You just got to be careful because it puts the trees through a lot of stress when you do stuff like that. Or you can just find something that's going to be kind of to the right size that you're looking for. This tree, the Arizona cypress, has a bunch of different varieties. I think this one is the blue ice one, so it kind of has a blue tint to them. There's a green one that's like the OG Arizona cypress. There's one called Crystal Frost, which is like a taller, more topping. It'd probably be best just to find a variety of the tree that's fitting to the size you're looking for. But these do really well here.
Yeah, I have a neighbor that tops all his trees.
Uh-huh.
They're flat top. All it's so funny.
How do the trees look?
Oh, well, I've never seen a beautiful plum tree flat.
Yeah, topping's not, it's not recommended, but you can do it for sure. These 2 to 3 feet a year. So the Deodar cedars and the Arizona cypress are going to be the fastest growing ones. Kind of on the opposite end of the Arizona rosewood's going to grow real slow. Junipers are kind of a moderate grower. Then I brought up some other kind of good size shrubs. This is a chase tree. It's not going to be evergreen. It's going to shed its leaves in the wintertime, but it's something that gets bit down between the houses, and you want to plant something up front to have like color. Something like this will bloom all summer long. These can get real big too. They can get like 15 to 20 feet tall and wide. if you're looking for a privacy screen that's going to only provide, cover it in the summertime, say you're not around in the winter or whatever, of the evergreen trees you have, or kind of alternate one evergreen, one deciduous, one evergreen, one deciduous. If you want a lot of color, this would be a good option for that. These can get big, they can handle the heat, and they get really nice flowers.
They look very similar to me as a butterfly.
Yeah, they look a lot like butterfly bushes, but their buds are a lot longer and their leaf structure is a lot different. Their leaf structure is like very uniform, but they
Yeah, because I think the butterfly bush gets very woody inside.
yeah, the butterfly bushes can get woody. When these get big, they're bottom if you want to have like a traditional type tree trunk with a canopy. But these are kind of like the same shape as say like a desert willow or something, just like a big globe, But if you're looking for like an evergreen alternative, like you only care about blocking the neighbors in the summertime because that's the only time you hang out on the porch or whatever, this would be a good option. It's called a chaste tree. People refer to it as a monk tree or a vitex tree. It's hardy down to like negative temperatures, but it will shed its leaves in the wintertime. And another thing about this tree is that it only wakes up when it starts to get warm. So it'll still be dormant in March and April when other things start to wake up. It's like in May when we start to get consistently like in the 80s. That's when they'll wake up. And these guys all just started flowering like a couple weeks ago. So they won't really flower till end of June, July. Of course, it's also weather determined. If we have a really hot May and June, then they'll be flowering then. But they like the heat. So like oftentimes people have this tree or in their yard and they come into the store like in March or April thinking that it's dead because everything is waking up. But it's not dead. It just needs consistent heat to wake up. And then
You're probably not gonna have leaves until like about May.
the question was,
Fair.
yeah, the question was, you're probably not going to have leaves till May. Yeah, that's correct. It's not going to leaf out till we get consistently like in the 80s. So another deciduous shrub that does real well here, that gets real big, is a Rosa Sharon. These guys can the same as the chase tree. It's going to shed its leaves in the wintertime. But if you're looking for a color combination with the evergreen, or you only care about privacy in the summertime, you can let them get big. They can easily get 6 to 8 feet tall and wide, and they bloom all summer long till it gets cold. And they come in a bunch of different colors. The flower is kind of similar to a hibiscus flower, but it can survive through the winter here. But it does go dormant. Animals tend to stay away from them. It kind of has like a funky leaf structure as well. Again, they go after the bigger, leafier stuff that's got serrated edges or texture. They should stay away from. The flowers don't have much fragrance, but they have like really great color. You can't see it from here, but there's some like dark red on the inside and some light pink on the outside. There's some that are white with kind of red in the middle. Flowers tend to have multiple colors. And again, they can get real big. So if you're looking for just like a deciduous screen, these guys work really well. First question was, do you cut them back? Sorry, I'll get to both. The first question was, do you cut them back in the spring? Yeah, if you wanted to manage the size, you would just cut them back kind of end of February, March. Because if you let them go, they can get pretty big and pretty dense, and the branches get to the size of like small trees. Yeah, these ones won't freeze to the ground. They'll be sticks, so they'll go dormant in the wintertime. But you can let them go, and they'll get real big and real kind of all over the plant. They do require kind of like a little bit of deadheading, If you can see, like this flower is kind of spent, you can just pluck them off with your hand though. You don't have to get any clippers out. So you can like walk up to it periodically and just kind of pick the flowers off when they're done. And then you'll see that there's buds right behind it, kind of ready to go. So it's good to kind of do a little bit of deadheading maintenance on them, but they'll have tons of color. And like real pretty, delicate flowers, but they do go dormant. But it's a deciduous version of some kind of screen and stuff.
Water.
Take a lot of water, you know. They're going to be flowering consistently throughout the summer, so you know anything that flowers needs more water, uses more energy. So these will need consistent water. And these are similar to the chase tree in the fact that they like it when it gets hot. So this is one that's going to leaf out a little bit later as well. These started blooming like right around the same time as the chase trees did. You know, the last few weeks or so after we kind of had those heat waves, they started waking up and flowering around town.
I've never seen that color.
Yeah, this color is cool. Yeah, I mean, you see the purple blue combo a lot. You see the white and the red color combo a lot. This one looks like yeah. These get big and dense, so that'd be a good like deciduous privacy screen. Then the other one more kind of deciduous plant that works well as a privacy screen is crepe myrtles. These come in all different shapes and sizes. You know, some can get as tall as 10, 15 feet. Another plant that wakes up kind of late, but they have a really pretty kind of clusters of flowers on the tips. They come in many different colors. They come with like different leaf colors as well. But the bigger ones are great as like a big privacy hedge. But again, it's something that will shed its leaves in the wintertime. But if you're trying to alternate, juniper, crepe, these often flower in the middle of the summer when it's really hot and everything else is kind of struggling. This is kind of when they thrive. I think if you go to warmer regions like in the south and stuff, they can get to be upwards of like 20 feet tall. And so our growing season here is not long enough for them to ever get that big here. I've seen some, 8, 10 feet tall here, but that's about the highest I've seen them, So they make trees. We have some of the trees here, but I think the trees in our climate are, not going to get much taller than us just because, again, their growing season's so short. They don't wake up until May. And then, by, October, November, we start getting cool and they start kind of shutting down,
The one I got here was on discount.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of wanted to save it and bring it home. It's beautiful. It has 3 different colors.
Oh, wow.
It really does well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, crepe myrtle is another option. I mean, I think it can get kind of boring. It's good to have alternatives. Or if you have 6 juniper trees lined up in a row and you want to kind of put some color in front of it, that would work. Or if you're trying to kind of stagger stuff and you just using your back patio, throughout the summertime and you want just to look at something nice instead of like a green wall, the tree, the rose of Sharon, crepe myrtles are all really good. And I think that's all I had. I think I talked about anything. If you guys have any questions. Yeah.
Will they get a little more dense and produce more flowers?
The question was, yeah, I mean, you can prune butterfly bushes kind of any way you want. I know as they get older, they get very leggy and army. So, you want to do any kind of major pruning right before springtime. So for those, you would do that, end of February, March. And I would just cut off the long arms that are sticking out and stuff. And as far as getting more flowers, when the butterfly bushes put out buds, they only flower for a couple weeks before they're kind of done. So the more you kind of deadhead and cut back the spent flowers, the more new flowers will pop up. And as long as you keep fertilizing too, the more nutrients they get, the more they'll help with flowering as well. You got a question? Do grow here, but some of them are kind of not tolerant to our winters, and some of them are not really tolerant to full sun. So they grow here, but it would have to be kind of an ideal situation. I don't think wouldn't do well as like a privacy screen or something. You could probably have it on a trellis growing somewhere, but know that it's going to go dormant in the winter time. Carry here. I'm not sure if the Algerian one grows here. I don't remember seeing it. It could, or it could be that we get too cold in the winter that it can't survive, even when it's dormant. Question.
How about mimosa trees?
The question was about mimosa trees. Yeah, mimosa trees. Mimosa trees are not the densest trees. But they're super pretty trees. So that would be a good evergreen tree. They get kind of tall and have more of a canopy. So not necessarily the best for a screen, but you could kind of probably keep it shorter and denser. But they're just not the densest trees. But they do fine here. They can be kind of messy because they have seed pods that they drop. We carry a variety that doesn't produce seed pods. I don't know if we have any right now.
Neighbors have it, and it was just like sticks.
Yeah, they're another plant that doesn't wake up until May.
They can kind of see themselves.
Yeah, they're kind of invasive.
Yeah.
What is that tree that sounds like chipotle? You know what I'm talking
Yeah, it's called a Chapalta tree. I don't know. Everyone butchers the name.
about? I don't know how to pronounce
Yeah, that's a nice tree. It's kind of like I think it's kind of like a better choice if you're trying to kind of block something.
Best trellis for like honeysuckles and vines.
The question was
Wood, metal, well,
the question was best trellis to use for the vines. I think you can use kind of anything you want. I mean, like the way you'd want to plant whatever. So a wood trellis, a metal trellis, chain link fence. I mean, people set up like metal rods with wire along it. You could do that. Just whatever you do, you're gonna have to train it to grow up it. So as it gets longer, you'll kind of put the arms closer to where you kind of want it to weave in and out of. So you'll have to.
crazy. I can't fix it.
Yeah, so we'll cling on to stuff. If you guys want to come up and look after, they have tiny little arms that are sticking out on the tips that literally cling on to anything. So this would probably cling onto a wall and start climbing up. So this probably wouldn't require a trellis scene. And they'll grow as no, I've never heard of them. I don't think so. I haven't heard of them. I mean, I haven't seen them in the store here ever. So it might be something that's we get too cold in the wintertime for.
I have a boxwood that is kind of naked spots. We'll give them.
The question she was asking why her boxwood has spots in it and how to make it more dense. When boxwoods get kind of holy like that, it's kind of it just takes so long for them to recover because they're such slow growing plants, So you just got to keep kind of selective pruning, Be sure you're still giving it fertilizer so it has more nutrients to grow. Just with plants like that grow slow, when they get kind of dead spots or nasty spots, it just takes a long time for them to fill back in.
We've been talking this late. Thank you.
All right, I guess that's it.